Okay, so thanks for coming out, everybody. You know, it takes a lot of work to do this kind of stuff, so I appreciate everybody supporting it. You know, it's nice to have, you know, people show up and care about this, so it's great to see everybody come out. Like I said earlier, it's kind of fun being in this room because it feels like I should be doing a rendition of High School Musical. Unfortunately, I don't have those skills. I don't watch Glee, I'm sorry, but you know, I'll try something later. Also, I feel like I should have worn a black shirt. You know, standing on this stage, I feel like I should be trying to sell you my new cell phone idea. So, sorry, I don't have any cell phones for sale. Anyway, thanks also to Wells High School, because this is an awesome auditorium, so this is great. Okay, so those of you who are familiar with the Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Watch, you probably saw me post a lot of random things. You also know that I try to put a lot of effort into having a community side of everything too. It's one thing to go around the neighborhood and look for crime issues, another thing completely to try to tie in some kind of a community element. So it's really helpful to have both sides because honestly the point of trying to understand the crime issues is to improve the community and bring the community closer together. So what I'm going to go through today is kind of a basic presentation. I timed it out in about 20-25 minutes, so I'm going to try to stick to that, and then we can do question and answers later, okay? But I have slides, so it'll be entertaining. This main image, I just want to point out, this is by a Chicago artist, Tim Durant, who basically took images of different buildings on Chicago Avenue and kind of brought them together. So I've always had kind of been a fan of this image, so I thought it would be kind of a fun way to start out. So anyway, who am I? I'm Steve Niketopoulos. I work at CAN TV Chicago. That's my main job. I produce educational TV shows for Chicago. Okay, it's basically public access, but we create our own educational shows to try to teach Chicago about different issues. I produce a series of shows ranging from, you know, social service issues like domestic violence education, HIV education, all the way up to, you know, kids learning geometry on the television. So I get to meet a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I also meet a lot of politicians. Now, I really do believe that you can shape the world based on what you want to do in it. Okay, so working there is enough empowerment to know that it's just a matter of time before somebody stands up and tries to do something in the neighborhood to help. Okay, so this isn't just a thing where I'm trying to run the whole thing. The point of it is that it's a collaborative, this whole thing. I moved here in 2011, okay, and I moved here from Lincoln Square, and I saw buildings all over the neighborhood with gates all around them, you know, and I saw, you know, all these stories in the newspaper of robberies. It was kind of confusing as to how it became so, you know, so heavily kind of attacked the neighborhood, and I never lived in a neighborhood like this before. So I started talking to neighbors, and I started to realize that people were getting broken into. Sometimes at noon, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was kind of crazy to me that this stuff was happening so frequently. I went through the process of trying to put a garbage can outside the front of my house because there is a bus stop there. And I immediately learned how complex things are in the neighborhood. My buddy Drew here is going to help me with my PowerPoint. First slide. Ukrainian Village has 3 different aldermen. We have 3 neighborhood groups, as I've discovered so far, and we have 4 police CAPS beats as well. So once you start looking at the neighborhood, you realize how many different lines of intersection there are going through the whole thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get anything done. It just means that you have to start talking to a lot of people. So, okay, next one. So I loosely defined the boundaries of the Neighborhood Watch into what basically is Old Ukrainian Village, the East Village, this area down here, which most of you know is the CGNA, Chicago Grand Neighborhood Association, and then this area below Chicago Avenue, all the way down to Grand, which pretty much only goes under the Westtown designation. Westtown, as some of you may know, goes from the river all the way to Humboldt Park. So you can't really have a Westtown Neighborhood Watch unless you have 100 people doing it, because it's too big of an area to try to figure out the statistics and what's common. You see here, this is the old ward map. Okay, we just changed a little bit, but 32nd ward, 1st ward, 26th ward. So we have Alderman Waxback, Alderman Moreno, and Alderman Maldonado. So one of the first things I did was I tried to figure out exactly what can be done to work with each office. And really what it comes down to is there's not a lot of funding in Chicago right now. There's not a lot of money in streets and sanitation. You can't really do too much beyond what's being done. Every alderman's office has a menu, menu money they can use for different things. And they certainly all try to do something, but really there's only so much you can do regarding daily crime and crime that's happening in real time. The associations that I mentioned, which are the Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Association, the East Village Association, and the Chicago Grand Neighborhood Association, they obviously have their own missions. They have focus, and a lot of them focus on businesses, on there's a liquor moratorium thing going on. There's all these different kinds of things that they push their membership to focus on. And that's fine too, because it's all focused on the community. They do try to pay attention to crime, but they're not going out the way that I'm trying to do and really figure out real-time crime. The police, obviously, are tied by budget and numbers. We all know some of the things that have been going on in the police department, the changes. And for a while there, we thought we weren't going to have a CAPS program, and now we do have a CAPS program back again, which is fantastic. So there's been some changes, and it's a little confusing, but ideally, the police are doing what they can. The beat areas have changed. We lost our police station, obviously, over in the East Village, and now we're all part of the 12th district, which reaches way down south. So the Ukrainian Village, a bit of Noble Square, and Smith Park is the very top of the new 12th district. So they're coming all the way up to service us. So basically, once I started this group, I started talking to neighbors about it, and it started to grow. Now we're over 1,200 members, which is amazing. The community page, the other side of it, is close to about 500 members, which is great too, because I like both of those things complementing each other. But anyway, people were really eager to join up. Everyone kind of felt the same way. And people talked to me about concerns that they had. So one of the first things I did was I tried to talk to the neighbors. This is an early one. I tried to talk to the neighbors about exactly what it is that they thought were the problems or the concerns in the neighborhood. So again, I'm trying to basically figure out from my neighbors talking about what they worry about. They can be things from needing stop signs to pothole problems to needing a speed bump, that kind of thing. So it's very simple neighbor stuff. But obviously, a lot of people started worrying about some of the gang issues and some of the robberies, because that does pop up and touch all of us at one point. So I also tried to walk around the streets and alleys to get a real-time sense of how this neighborhood works. I'm very safe about it, and I get a lot of people worried about me, but I promise you I know how to get out of a situation if I need to. I'm not an idiot. But beyond that, I think it's important to kind of know what is going on in different parts of the neighborhood, but also, what does that neighborhood feel like when you walk through it, when you try to go through the whole thing? So I walked the streets and alleys, and honestly, I was just pretty much shocked by the stories when I talked to people about gangs, catalytic converter thefts, which I never realized was a thing until I moved here. People basically shimmying under somebody's car with a portable saw, like a portable sawzall, and in the middle of the night, or sometimes in the daytime, literally sawing off somebody's catalytic converter and just sneaking out with it. There was somebody who was caught, Sergeant Class told me this, there was somebody who was caught about a year ago driving through the neighborhood who had a trunk full of catalytic converters. They were caught in the East Village driving around. So, I mean, that stuff's real. It's weird to me. It's kind of surreal that this is like still going on, but people get away with what they want to try to get away with. And anyways, street muggings. Obviously, everyone gets worried about that. The four main issues that I saw in this neighborhood, okay, are in my watch radius, okay, just to remember that big map. It's this big area that I'm looking at. Gangs, taggers, okay, muggers and burglars. Basically, okay, gangs. Why are there gangs here? Obviously, they're protecting drug territory. That's basically what a gang does. Okay, the area down below Chicago Avenue tends to get the most gang activity. You You have incidents involving Satan's disciples shooting. You have Latin kings being shot at. You have the Harrison Gents. You have what is it? I guess there's another version of the Satan's disciples of Ohio Marshfield. It's kind of weird to see some of these gangs pop up, but once I started trying to focus on exactly where these gangs were, you go around, you start to see gang tags all over. Okay? This one. Here's an incident of a gang tag down in that area that's really, we can only call West Town, below Chicago, and what is it, west of Damon. This is a diss to the C notes, okay, who are down there. The C notes go, their image is basically a dollar sign. But if you write a backwards dollar sign, that's really bad. So anyways, this is basically intimidation, tagging, you know, to try to get other gangs angry. And of course, this leads to gang territory wars, and that's what we see. But obviously, like I'm saying, this all ties into drug territory. So I've had people in this group email me saying they have video of people dealing drugs on their corners. So this is all happening outside of our neighbors' houses. Here's another one. This is a wall down there too. This is another series of disses. And then one more. And this is last year here on 11. You can't see it that well, but this is a big crown on the stop sign. That's Latin Kings. We've had some gang activity down at Huron. I know that, I mean, I should really say it's a real shame that we just lost every block like we did. But I mean, not only in the Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Watch, but also in every block you had people just talking all the time about what the heck is going on down in Huron. So, you know, obviously, we all work together to try to identify where that issue is happening. Okay, try to talk with the ward offices, try to talk with CAFs, try to talk with whoever could help try to bring some attention to this, to focus on trying to help turn that block around, potentially that one house around. We also did a positive loitering event. Steve Jensen, who's back here, actually talked me into it. It's a very good idea. We're going to do more of them as the weather turns, but we all went out there, and honestly, that was as much of a deterrent to the gangs as it was a social event. So it was way cool to meet everybody. But beyond that, it's important that we, if needed, stage a positive loitering to remind gangs who live on a certain street that they don't own the neighborhood. I'll get into some community presence later on. Anyway, we try to identify trouble spots with gangs, which a lot of you are kind of aware of some of the areas right now. The next thing is taggers, okay? Taggers have this kind of anarchistic thing going on. I kind of think of them, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so I kind of think of them like skateboarders or something. You know, they're going around the neighborhood, kind of putting their little tags wherever they can put them. And it's funny because it's not a certain definable thing. I mean, taggers could be high school kids, they could be 30-something hipsters. It's something that people just do because it's that easy to get some kind of little art crayon kind of thing. You just go around and put your little tag everywhere. I've tried to find a way to figure out the trending of how this is happening and why this is happening and where it's happening. Most tagging tends to happen below Division Avenue, up at the top of Ukrainian Village and the top of East Village. So I'm trying to cover that stuff up. In the last few months, well, in the last 6 months really, I've ridden around on my scooter, trying to be safe, covering up as many tags as I could. Because my theory, and somebody pointed this out in the group, is the broken window theory, which I didn't know about. So I didn't come up with this apparently. The broken window theory being that if a neighborhood looks dirty, if it looks like it's attracting crime, it will attract crime. So my thinking is covering up the tagging is going to deter people from thinking it's an easy neighborhood to go and attack people, or whatever the story is. So, you know, this is a common tag. I've covered up a ton of these, and honestly, what's fun about this is when I cover them up, I go back and I see that they don't reappear. So once these are covered, whenever they reappear, you can pretty much get a sense of how often people are going around tagging and what areas they're tagging in. So it kind of helps you follow a trending cycle if you literally go out and do this stuff. NSD has never stopped tagging. It's commonly all over the city. It's a belief system, right? So there is a unity behind taggers. Another tagger group is VTC, which I think has vandalized the city. And VTC is a crew of, pretty much high school or just outside of high school kids who walk around and at night. This is between 1 and 4 a.m. sometimes, and we'll just kind of put their little monikers wherever they can. Anyways, this is something that I'm trying to get a hold on in the Ukrainian Village. I'm going to give props to Steve, because Steve not only knows about these issues up in Bucktown and Wicker Park, but he works with the community service of the 32nd Ward and helps make sure that the kids who do get caught do community service, cleaning up, tagging, and polls and stuff like that. So Steve's on the front lines of this stuff. Okay. And then, of course, if you do see graffiti, whether it be gang or tagging, please call 311 and have them remove it. This is our awesome gang graffiti removal team the city has come out. Sometimes it takes up to like a week and a half or 2 weeks. Sometimes they get it within a couple days, but please, if you see it, keep calling, make sure that they know, come and clean that stuff up. Okay, next category I was talking about is now muggers. Mugging. Okay, so why do people do this? I wrote before that it's basically a sign of desperation. One guy who was just caught mugging people in December or late November said that he was doing it because he wanted to give himself a Christmas present. So basically, he was doing it to get money or to get access to money so that he could basically treat himself to something for Christmas. So it's odd, some of the reasoning behind why people are basically pulling a gun on somebody late at night on a sidewalk. This doesn't always happen late at night, sometimes it happens in the morning. In 2011 and early 2012, people who were waiting for the bus down on Grand Avenue near, Levitt, Hoyne, they would be held up at 8 a.m. They would have a couple guys ride up on bikes, like little BMX bikes or whatever, pull a gun on them waiting for the bus, and rob them while they're waiting there. So it's weird trending about when people get mugged. There's no real correlation of how to track it. But the thing is, what do you look out for? So it's about trying to make sure that you're paying attention when you're out there on the streets. But that's it. Some people might jump out from the shadows, so you have to be careful about that. Okay, next one. We are the 1-year anniversary of the subway shooting. So this obviously shocked the whole community. This happened up near Western and Division. It was incredibly shocking to have a guy come in the subway and not only rob them, but then shoot the lady who was working there by herself on the way out. So this stuff can get real scary. Thankfully, this guy's been caught. He's in jail. It took a while, but they did find him. But that is something that's really scary, and it did really polarize the neighborhood there for a few months. My thing is trying to figure out how easy is it for somebody to escape. If I walk up to somebody and I rob them on the street, how exactly am I going to try to get away? So is it running away? Are you on a bike? So if they're already mobile, they can get away quickly. Okay? If they have the ability to run away, how are they going to run away? Well, some guys jump on buses. They try to get away like that. Some guys have bikes, some guys run and go get the car somewhere. But more often than not, people are running between houses, between the little spots between houses that you can walk between the front and backyard, the gangways. So they're going to try to rob you on the street, run through a couple gangways. So one of the things the Ukrainian Village has a real issue with is how close the houses are built and how unprotected some of the gangways are. Or unlit. They're not lit that well. So that's another thing of community presence that I'll get to later. Anyways, let me go to the next one. Burglars. So, why do people do this? I wrote this up as being more of a calculated criminal. Because not only do people basically spend time casing a house or an apartment complex or a condo complex, but they spend time figuring out who's coming in, who's going out, and they actually interact with people, trying to make it seem like they're not up to anything wrong. So they'll pretend to be somebody servicing a gas line, or they'll pretend to be somebody visiting somebody in an apartment complex. Oh, I know Kim on the second floor, I'm just going to say hello. Like, there's actually a lot of instances where people talk about people coming out and basically trying to get away with walking past somebody, if anybody even takes the time to ask the question. So sometimes people just walk right past you. You just assume, hey, it's another person in the world. They must be doing something that's not bad. Well, not always, and sometimes it's a matter of just trying to keep your eyes and ears open about what's going on. What happens commonly is cars in alleys will idle for a while, and if people aren't looking in their alleys, somebody might be unloading the contents of someone's apartment into a car that's just idling back there. We've had instances where people come home and they've lost TVs, computers, furniture. It's ridiculous. People just walking right out like they're moving out, And a little later they'll talk to a neighbor who said, "Oh, yeah, I saw this car in the alley. I thought they were moving out, or I thought they were leaving, or something like that." Yeah, they were just taking all the electronic stuff. So it's kind of weird, but they can be incredibly obvious about what they're doing. So it can be very calculated, okay? It's very easy to sneak around at night. Lighting helps deter this problem, but burglaries happen during the day when people are at work. It's kind of crazy, but one of the first stories I heard moving in the neighborhood was somebody who lived half a block down from me on a Tuesday had somebody kick in their door, rob them of their computer and their backup drives and everything. So this person then, called the police, filed a report, put a lock on it. That Friday, I assume the same people, I don't know, kicked in the door again, and then stole more of what they found in there. Basically the same time of the day. So it's kind of crazy how easy it is to do that. I just talked to Parlor 836. They're one of the groups who has a couple flyers out here. They have a light blue flyer. It's a nail salon on Damon Avenue. It's 836 number Damon, that's the name. They just told me a story this week about how one of the employees was leaving at night, about 7 o'clock at night. They have a basement, and the employee, this guy named Anthony, went down there to basically get his luggage that he had left, and he saw a guy who came in the back door of the basement who was picking up bikes and carrying the bikes out the door. So he said, "Hey, are those your bikes?" And the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, they're mine. That's no problem." And then he goes outside. Anthony follows him, talks to him for a while. The guy says, "Oh, I have a couple more things." He goes back in the basement, goes to pick up the luggage. Says, "Oh, yeah, this is my luggage. I just got to leave." That was Anthony's luggage. He was leaving that day for the airport or something. So called the police. This guy didn't even run away. The police came. He went halfway down the block and was underneath somebody's porch pulling at their copper wiring that he found. So this guy apparently had a lifetime of trying to rob people, just saying whatever he could to try to get into a door, carry something out the door, whatever. So it's amazing how some people are actually just kind of a little nuts who are doing this. Another thing, let me do one more. Another thing is, well, I'll get into this in just a second. The gang house raid that was down on Huron, okay? It was not raided necessarily for gang activity. It was raided because there was word that there was stolen property in there. It was later found out that some of the stolen property was brought to the house and traded for drugs. So when that house was seized and all this stolen property was found, a lot of it was piled up because local burglars were coming to trade it for whatever they could get from the house, which is another weird kind of reality. Okay, so let me go ahead and jump into police strategies. It's been a crazy couple years, okay? We had, what was it, last year? 2 years ago, we had Superintendent McCarthy come to the Ukrainian Village and talk to the neighborhood about some of the new strategies that will be happening. These strategies have changed pretty dramatically in that time. We go one more. There was a lot of violence in 2012, obviously. Do one more. Now we have a change to 911 calls. I've heard both sides of this argument. Okay, at first I kind of found it a little disturbing because I didn't know what robbery meant. Okay, I'm a little confused on that still. But ideally, the idea is that they're pulling, I think it was 44 police officers, putting them more police officers on the street by doing this change. I guess for a while, major cities have been taking more reports over the phone about these kinds of incidents. So There's the pro that we're not having people come to calls that aren't so important. The other side, though, in my opinion, is that it does make the communities worry more. I kind of see it as more of a back PR move. But honestly, we'll have to see how this plays out. Do one more. And of course, the newest thing, this is just from a couple days ago, is that now it seems like pulling police officers off of specialized units is now potentially going to be the thing again. So they might be reversing that policy and actually starting up some specialized units. We'll have to see how this all plays out, but the strategies have changed. My point being is that all of these things that affect the neighborhood, it's not only important for everybody to have awareness of what are the issues going on in the neighborhood, but also I try to do things independently. And I don't do that to like shun anybody. I do that because a lot of policies change. A lot of attitudes change. There's a lot of winds out there. It's a windy city, I guess, right? And I generally think that if there's a straight focus to how to look at these issues and a straight strategy, it's going to be more effective for the long term. So the question is, of course, how to deter future crime. Okay, so obviously one of the main things to do is to try to clean up. Not, the broken window theory, how to make everything look a little bit nicer. Clean up that trash, try to, hold somebody accountable for having a really, dirty lot that has nothing built in it. More lighting. This could be gangway lighting, this could be street lighting. I know that a lot of you want new lighting in the street lights. The alderman basically told me that the new bright bulbs that they put up there cost a lot of money. And they tend to focus on those intersections that are busy or a light post that will partially go down an alley as well too. So there's a lot of strategy into where those lights get put. Doesn't mean that they won't get put out if you keep requesting them. I guess directly ask the ward office, your ward office for that information. But lighting does cost money for the city, so anything that we can do to light our gangways or put pressure on our landlords or building owners to light gangways, backyards, back doors, front yards, front doors. I mean, I know that the city can look very pretty at night, but it's also very, very tempting when neighborhoods are very dark. Nosy neighbors. I think it's time that we all became incredibly nosy again. One of the things people started talking to me about is how now on the street they'll walk around the neighborhood and they'll look at people, or they'll see somebody else looking at them, and they know that people are paying attention to each other. Please consider talking to your neighborhood associations if you have any. Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Association, East Village Association, and Chicago Brand Neighborhood Association. Any way you can get a chance to meet more neighbors, it's worthwhile. And community presence. I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay, so I have a couple flyers out here. I would encourage everybody to take one and think about putting one of these up in your window. This is, of course, the official City of Chicago CAPS flyer. I mean, it's much more thicker when you get the real one, but I made copies so everyone can at least have something in the window. This one here, the Neighborhood Watch, a lot of the people voted that they like this one the most. I made a couple of versions, and everyone seems to like that one. Marketing material tends to be most effective when it's yellow paper with black lettering, so I hope you're okay with that color choice. Anyway, so signs and windows. Also, I think it's important to think about signs on poles. This has been something I've been asking of the Neighborhood Watch lately to see what people think, and it's mostly positive that people like this idea. So there is not a lot of money in ward offices to necessarily help do enough of these to make a big difference. And believe it or not, I actually think the number needs to be 50 to make an effect on the neighborhood. Obviously more than that is not a problem, but I don't make any money from what I do. I'm just a volunteer, and I would love to buy the neighborhood 50 signs, but I think I might come up with a Kickstarter campaign for this one. I found a sign company that can make whichever version. I'll have people vote on what version they like, and there's more than this. But I think that it's something to be said for the effect of someone coming into your alley or down your street or coming off a major street, and they don't see anything. They don't see signs on windows, CAPS warning, community, whatever. They don't see anything on the poles. I mean, we have these beautiful Ukrainian Village signs around the area as well. But I'm actually curious about the effect that this might have on deterring people from just thinking, and again, the whole point of it is from deterring people from thinking that no one cares. So this is just an idea right now. Go next slide. So watch signs in windows, watch signs on poles, and of course I think that there needs to be more attention paid to alleys. Like I said, I've gone through a lot of alleys and I found a lot of sneaky spots and a lot of places for people to sneak between buildings. I think it's something worth pointing out to people who live around the neighborhood. And I honestly think that the next step, and this is pretty much what we're launching at the meeting today, is our new block club idea. Let me go to the next one. Okay, so just imagine a world, if you will. I'm very idealistic, so bear with me here. But imagine a world where the people on your block all communicated with each other about who got broken into, who got robbed, and where those robberies happened. Where are the troubled houses? Where would repairs be needed? Is there a graffiti problem? Are there any unkept properties? Are there any lighting issues on your block? Who's shooting off fireworks when it's not July 4th? A lot of people complain about people shooting off fireworks. Judy, we talked about this at the meeting. Judy's in the front row. She's helping with this project. She made a big point of that, and it was absolutely right. We can never track down which of our neighbors is shooting off fireworks, and it can be annoying. It freaks out a lot of animals, too. Knowing your neighbors, okay, having block parties, okay, and then, of course, knowing your neighbors and their pets, knowing your local pets. Some people want to hold pet owners accountable for not being very good with their animals. I'm not trying to go on a crusade about that, but it's worth knowing who lives around you. So lots of good things, I think, can come from trying to know the people on your immediate block. There are not many clubs in the city of Chicago. This is the current Clearmont Block Club map for our neighborhood. Western, here's Wood, this is Ashland over here. There's a couple little things here. If you click on these, it's not even that easy to click on. CGNA is registered, which is actually over here. There's not a lot of definite block clubs. Now I know for a fact that there is a Facebook group where is Marshfield? I guess it's right here. There's a Facebook group for the neighbors along Marshfield. So I know that they communicate. There's not a lot of block clubs, is my point. So the idea is to try to start up a system so that it would be easier for the neighborhood to have block clubs. Now I'm trying to go big with this. I'm trying to cover the whole area, like the area of the watch radius that I talked about earlier in the meeting. So the idea is that if we can launch a bunch of these pretty quickly, we can possibly have some of those effects like I was talking about. All right, so it's one thing, I think, to start these groups on Facebook. Every block is gone. Again, it's kind of shocking. But it's one thing to have a bunch of people talking on Facebook. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it so that it's people talking beyond Facebook. Okay, so that's the other part of this idea. So how do we talk about blocks? What is a block club? Okay, if I walk out this door, I'm on Ashland Avenue. And I can look across the street and I can see my neighbors. So let's pretend we're back in these streets here. If you go out your front door, those are your neighbors across the street. So does your block club mean that, we're the Hoyne Block Club? So there are people across the street are on your club? Well, what about the people a block down? Or it's 6 blocks down? So it's really hard to figure out how to talk about this. Also, I've had it really hard to talk to people about problems in their alleys. When people try to talk about, oh, we're having an issue in our alley, we're below Erie and we're next to Levitt. Wait, but then the alley stretches, everyone kind of trips up when they try to talk about where their alley is located. Okay, so this concept is trying to fix all these problems. Okay. Alleys in the Ukrainian Village are basically 4 shapes. Okay, they go straight through. They make a T. H is very common. Okay, and of course just kind of like a plus. So that's pretty much how alleys look, block to block. In December, I started working on a strategy with this with Colleen Tierney, Ann Shaw, Matt McWeeny, who gave the speech earlier, Judy Gettner right here from CGNA, and then Josh Stock as well. So we all started talking about these issues, trying to figure out how to look at this stuff. Basically, this is what we're going to try to start with. You all have a map with a bunch of numbers, okay? We're not playing bingo. I'm so sorry. This is community safety bingo. Okay. What I decided to do was create a map for the entire watch area and number each block based on that graphic we just saw before of how blocks look. Yeah, there's a bunch, for anybody who came in late, there's a bunch of copies of this over there. So, generally, what I'd like to do is find out, like for instance, block 51, that's me, okay? So, my thing is, I'm gonna try to find out, well, who else lives on block 51? Now, this has to be an organic idea. The idea of forming a block club is a little archaic, okay? Some of the original ideas for how people want to unite their neighborhoods or unite their block. So the focus is the middle of everything will be the alleys. So the middle of all these numbers, the middle of all these block numbers will be the actual alley. So it'll be really easy all of a sudden to talk about alley issues. But then at the same time, it allows for us to basically, and some of these blocks are smaller, some are bigger. Like number 2 up there, that's the hospital. So I mean, some of these areas are just taken up by other issues. But the idea is that basically the community block project that we're trying to start is bring a system for people to talk to each other about common issues the way they want to talk about it, okay? The best way to communicate, I found with people so far, is Facebook, right? Because it's easy to keep people accountable. My Facebook account right now is a picture of a dolphin kissing me, so anybody who sees that icon is probably going to think that I'm a real guy, that I actually have a life, I'm making up some kind of Facebook thing. So it's kind of easier to keep people accountable for that. Mix that with the fact that it's an easy way for people to build a discussion forum. That's why the watch works. Now, you mix together other ways for people in these groups to talk. So let's say block number 73, let's say the 10 people who are on this, or even the 5 people that started up. Who knows how many? There might only be 1 person on the block at the beginning. The point is to do this continuously for years. Let's say block 73. Let's say everybody here votes they want to have a Google document, which you can get just with any email address. I've been testing it to try to see if it'll work, and you can build a little discussion forum within a shared Google document. Let's say this block wants to create their own Facebook account or their own Facebook group. All of a sudden, everybody's talking that way. It could be a series of phones. Maybe these guys want to talk through the phone. Maybe these guys are mostly seniors, and they want to have meetings every month. Who's to say why that would be bad? And all of a sudden, the neighbors get to know each other and talk to each other. I think that it's important for this idea to be organic in the sense that each block has the ability to decide what is the most effective way to kind of work within themselves. So as this goes on, people within each individual block, theoretically, are going to start talking to each other about how they want to go ahead and go over things. I don't see any reason why this necessarily can't work given enough time. I just hope it doesn't take too long. Let me go to the next one. I'm coming to the end for those. Sorry for going on. The community block project, basically what we've been doing is our administrators have been gathering names, phone numbers, and emails. And now we're going to start assigning block numbers, where we're going to try to go ahead and bring this to fruition. The benefits, okay? We go to the next one. And yeah, well, let me say the benefits of this stuff is basically increased property value. Your individual block, if you can help fix that up with some of the things I talked about, where it be presence, cleaning up trash, garbage, that kind of thing, being aware of troubled neighbors, troubled houses. Over time, that's all going to bring up the property value for owners, landlords, all that kind of thing. So I think it's easy for people to get into this. Okay, sidewalks and alleys can be safer if people are working to kind of create more of a collective focus on trying to make things safer, increase the lighting, that kind of thing. The unity, it is so easy to then all of a sudden have block parties. The ward office always needs X amount of signatures, I don't remember if it's 15 or 20 signatures, something like that, to actually reserve the street to have your own block party. So all of a sudden everybody gets a chance to meet their neighbors, kids get to meet each other who live across the street, that kind of thing. And the community page, the other half of the Ukrainian Watch, the community page is cool because a lot of community groups built up through that. There's, like I've been saying, there's a sewing club that meets up every now and then. There was a runners club that was starting up. Like, it's kind of, with every block gone, it's kind of a good kind of fail-safe for at least finding a way to meet people too, but this is also the same kind of thing. And then, of course, your block, if you do have an issue, if you have multiple voices working together, you can then more effectively engage the city on any kinds of issues that you want help with. So it also helps build a voice. Okay, let me go to the next one. Oh, that's what I just went through. Okay, one more. Oh, I'm done. So anyways, please consider signing up for your block. Basically, the upper table here has a bunch of sign-up forms, and I have a whole vat of pens. Okay, if anybody wants to sign up for this who already hasn't, please feel free to fill one out and leave it with me. I'll be by the door for a few minutes here. I think that generally we know what the problems are in our neighborhood. I think we know more now what the crime trends are of our neighborhood. I think that the city can only do so much, the police can only do so much. I think that it's important that the rest of us try to join in however we can. So I know that you all believe that because you came out to this meeting, so I know that you guys all really share that idea right there. So keep in mind, try to stay in touch with your neighbors. Any way you can, it's worth knowing who you live next to. And I think that with the next step, it's completely up to us. So, thank you.